Hey, this is Tony with Salt Strong, and in this video I want to talk about some rigging tips and also some pros and cons that I found with the Z-Man Pop ShadZ. Now these are a soft plastic lure made by Z-Man. As you can see, they're made out of that very stretchy elastic material, and they're a popper essentially, very similar to a hard bait which would pop on the surface. These are a soft bait that will float on the surface, and you can use the same way as you would a topwater popper. So first, as far as what I like about this lure is the fact that you can rig it weedless. Using a topwater in areas where there's a lot of structure can be very productive, especially under docks, around trees and mangroves and debris that may be sticking up out of the water. You can cast this near that and not have to worry about it getting snagged up. Also, it has a very good action, as you can see with this footage of it in action on the water. It has a really good action. It pops very nicely, makes a really nice noise just like a popper would, and splashes a lot of water and creates a lot of a disturbance on the water, which will draw in those fish. And the last thing I like about it is the durability, because it is made out of that very elastic material. So if pinfish peck at it, you don't really have a problem with it getting torn up. But pufferfish, they destroy everything. They have razor sharp teeth and will cut through that very easily. So that's just the price you have to pay if you're fishing around pufferfish. Now, as far as the cons, what I didn't like about it is the rigging. Rigging can be very difficult on the Z-Man products, but I'm going to show you here in a few how I like to rig these, and it'll make it a little easier for you to rig them up. And then lastly, when you do mix these with other soft plastics, or you leave them out in the sun too long inside your tackle box, they will break down and deteriorate and will actually melt and will react with other soft plastics if you mix them up. So what I like to do is just keep the original packaging handy. That way when you're done with them, just dry them off, let them sit out and dry for a little bit, put them back into the packaging like so, and it closes back up. So you have them stored nice and neatly, and they're not mixing in with other soft plastics. Now, as far as rigging goes, what I do like is that you can rig these with a pretty heavy gauge wire hook, because they are very buoyant. So even if you do put a heavy gauge wire hook on there, it's not going to risk that lure sinking into the water, because it will hold quite a bit of weight up on the surface. So I like to go with anything from a 3 to a 4/0 size wide gap worm hook, as you see here, and just simply rig it up like you would rig a worm weedless. Just push that hook through the bottom, up through the top, then bury the hook, go underneath the body, pop it out the top, and then just skin hook the tip of the hook so that it makes it nice and weedless. Now, another tip is to actually push the lure up over the eye of the hook and over your knot. That way it will help it stay in place a little better as you're popping the lure. Because that's another thing I found, that is, if you don't push that lure far up, as you can see, it's kind of stuck on the eye of the hook there. But if you don't push it far up there and it's just hanging off a little bit as you're retrieving it, if you make a really good hard twitch, it's going to push that lure down the hook, and it's going to really affect the action and the presentation. Now, you can also rig these on a spring lock hook. Again, same size, anywhere from a 3 to 4/0, maybe even a 5/0, just to give you a little bit more of a gap. But this one has a weight on it. Disregard that. It's the only one I had available. But when you have a spring lock hook, when you're rigging these up, just push the head of the lure far up onto the spring, and then just pinch it there. See, I have it pinched all the way almost up to the eye of the hook there. Once you have that, take the hook itself and just start spinning the entire hook. That's going to spin that spring and push it into the lure while keeping it pinched on there. After a few turns, you can check it out, see where you're at, and as you can see, it is on that spring, ready to go. Then you would just simply bury the hook like you would any other hook that you put on here to make it weedless. And there you go, good to go on a spring lock hook. So those are some quick rigging tips that will help you effectively use this lure. Now, even though lures are very important when it comes to catching fish, they are basically what connects your line to that fish. What's more important is actually figuring out where the fish are going to be and if they're actively feeding, given the different times of the day or the different seasons, or even just the tides. If you have a high tide, low tide, incoming, outgoing, or slack tide, are those fish going to be in that specific spot? Because that will determine if those fish are even going to hit a lure. You can be throwing everything at them, but if they're not active, they're not feeding, you're not going to catch any fish. So if you need help mastering these patterns and these trends that these fish go through, definitely check out our Salt Strong Fishing Club at saltstrongclub.com, and we will help you get on more fish guaranteed. So until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.